Hi guys, and welcome to another week of Huey Highlights, another episode of Huey Highlights. Today we're taking a look at a game that released a couple of weeks ago, still in early access, but is getting regular, almost daily updates. This is of course Fishing Barents Sea. What's it all about, Alfie, as you may ask? Basically it simulates the commercial side of fishing. Fishing is a huge vocation in this country, anything from being a pastime, a hobby, through to serious business. Whereas you get games like Eurofishing and Fishing Planet, which focus on the pastime and hobby side of fishing. This game focuses more on the deep sea commercial fishing side of the fishing world, so to speak. So what do you get? Well, you get a career mode. But let me just take you through the options first of all, because once you first download this game, once you first buy it, you do get music playing, which can be quite loud. I've turned it down to 0, but there's like a mini soundtrack which appears in the game. There's several songs that play whilst you go roaming around the ocean. You have your usual video modes, you have your camera with the x-axis and the y-axis, and then you have just basic key bindings and so forth, so that's enough there for you to get set up to how you want to be. So yeah, I've already started a career with this. When you first begin this game, you have the option to name your character, you have an option to choose which gender, and you have either an option to start with the tutorial, which is what I recommend, or you can start in your home port of Hammerfest, which we'll talk about later. So for the purposes of this video, I'll show you it with the tutorial. Get a nice loading screen with the Aurora Borealis in the up in the sky there at night. We're of course right in that part of the world where the Northern Lights are visible, northwest Norway. So yes, here we are. Welcome to the Barents Sea. You begin your career with a sturdy little wooden fishing boat that you inherited from your grandfather. With each humble beginnings, it will be a long road to becoming one of the legendary mariners of the Barents Sea. Mariners, rather, legendary manners. But let us not get distracted with dreams of fortune and glory. I love that. Let's start with the basics. So, the tutorial mission, the steps, there are various steps of this tutorial mission. There are two types of tutorials. You get how to navigate the boat, how to haul in a long line, which we'll talk about later, and how to set a long line. So this basically, the very first thing they talk about is how to decrease or increase the throttle, how to steer, how to switch between third and first person mode. So at the moment we're currently in third person mode. One of the negatives of this game for me are the weird graphical glitches that you get with the weather, the sunlight, and the way that the sunlight behaves on the ocean. As you can see here, we're lit up like we've got some sort of fluorescent stick in our hands, but hopefully it's something that they'll iron out. So we get into first person mode, which is this. In first person mode, you can also move with the WASD keys, or the WASD, as it's often colloquially known as. You can interact with some objects on the boat with the E key. Try moving around the boat, and then when you're ready, open the door by pressing E, then walk to the chair in the wheelhouse and press E to interact with it. So this is first person mode. You've got a very small boat. You've got your storage for the fish. You've got the long line, where the long line attaches to, and you've got your the wheelhouse itself, where you obviously steer the boat. It's quite nicely detailed. You've got nice texturing on the wood and so forth. It gives you the impression that you're driving, that you're steering a very old, possibly third-hand boat full of splinters and wood chips and so forth. Come through here and you get to the living quarters. So you've got the stove, which you can light, gives a nice glow there. You've got fire extinguisher, got a picture of somewhere, and yeah, it does look homely. And also as well, You can just put the fire. You can return to the wheelhouse. And when you look around in first person view, often with many first person views on some other games, you don't get the full body modelled. If you look down, sometimes you just see, most of the time you'll see nothing. On this game you can see your legs and feet and the lower part of your body, and that's something that I like within a first person view, and something that I think that this game models very well. Obviously when you get to the bigger boats, you do get problems where your character feels like it's stuck either on a net, the net hauler, or on the long line hauler, and it takes you a couple of goes to actually free yourself from that particular spot to get back into the wheelhouse. So let's get back into the driver's seat, or the captain's seat. Once you're sitting in the chair, you can also drive the boat. In first person mode, using the same controls as in third person mode, press E to exit the chair and walk around. Press V to return to third person viewed. In third person mode, drive towards the long line. So there's driving the ship from the first person view. This is driving it from the third person, and obviously it's horses for courses. It's whatever you're used to, but I prefer driving from this mode. It gives you you can see a lot more. You can see where the buoys are for your nets and your long lines. Obviously, again, I'll talk about that later on in the video. So you just simply move and hold the W key until this yellow bar here is to the green, which is full throttle. I can't remember how fast this goes, but obviously you will get upgrades. You do get options to upgrade them, upgrade the engines further on in the game. In order to haul in the long line, you'll need to position the boat such that both of the buoys are starboard, which is the right side, and at least one of the buoys is within a few meters of the line hauler. A semicircular region will be highlighted green when one of the buoys is positioned close enough to the long line hauler. An arrow will point to the other buoy and will also be highlighted green once the buoy is starboard. So it's all about precision manoeuvring of your ship. So let's go alongside one of the buoys. Let's slow ourselves down. Let's get ourselves properly aligned. So there's the line indicating the position of the rope. You press E and you can haul in the long line. Now this brings up a mini game, or like a quick time event. It's more like a mini game. When hauling in a long line, you have to time your mouse click when you collect each fish. The smaller the circle is, the better you perform, and the better your haul will be, as indicated by the bonus percentage indicator. So red is you miss, yellow you were okay, green good, blue perfect. Now if you're not sure what a long line is basically a line of rope. I think in this game you get lines of 25, 50 and 100 meters. On that line you have a series of hooks to which you attach bait to, and you get explained the various types of bait later on in the game, probably after the tutorial. And the idea is after a set amount of time a number of fish will attach themselves to the hook, and then you can haul in the long line once the game lets you know when is the optimal time to haul in that particular long line. So let's have a go. So there we are, clicked it at the last minute, turns to circle purple, which is the optimal result. That I was a little bit too slow on, so it went in and then it went out, so I only got a green there. That was even worse, I got a yellow there, which was an okay. That was again green, and that was missed, so I totally missed the catch. So that tells you what you caught. You caught 36 pollocks, which is 372 kilograms, 25 haddock and 5 redfish. Now you need to gut the fish. Again, this brings up a mini game. Once you press start, you need to move the mouse from left to right in a continuous motion. Try to keep the knife over the blue dots to maximise the gutting quality of the fish. Gutting in fishing is essentially you remove the essential inner organs. It just improves the quality of a fish when you come to sell it at a later date. So let's start the fish gutting. So you can see here my advice is to move the mouse from left to right as slowly as possible. If you go too far, if you push the mouse too far up, you get into one of those blue zones, those like blue donut shapes, which doesn't give you any good gutting quality. And likewise, if you move the mouse down, so you have to move the mouse in a very slow way to get the maximum gutting quality. And it tells you, it grades you according, it gives you like this star grading system. 5-star is obviously the best gutting quality, going down to no stars if you haven't managed to gut anything. And it tells you how much fish have been gutted. It gives you, again, in kilograms, ungutted of 45.2 kilograms. I think that's because we've still got some fish to gut. And it tells you how much you've gutted already, 554.3 or 554 kilograms. So this is a red fish, so very slowly. Sometimes you will have to physically fight the mouse. I guess it depicts how in real life, when you gut a fish, some fish are more easier to gut than others. There are obviously more layers of cartilage, of skin, not wishing to sound graphic here, but which are more easier to cut through than others. So that's how catch gutted. Good job collecting the first long line. A mission waypoint has been set on your map to another long line that has been out for a number of hours already. Hurry to haul in the long line before too much time passes. A long line must be picked up before 48 hours have elapsed, or else the line will be lost. The colour of the buoys on the minimap indicate the amount of time they have been out for. So this is probably one of the key aspects of the game. Whenever you set a long line, after a period of time, the buoys to which mark the beginning and the end of the long line will change colour depending on how much fish the particular long line has caught. So let's jump back into the wheelhouse. Let's go back to third person and let's have a look at the map. So this is the map. That's Hammerfest. It's undiscovered. All of these locations, when you start the game for the first time, are undiscovered. You've got a couple of ports up here. You've got a much bigger open stretch of water, and you've got some more islands at the top. So if you're not familiar with the geography of where we are, the Barents Sea is what we call a marginal sea that forms part of the Arctic Ocean. It feeds into the Arctic Ocean. This is northwest Norway, and Hammerfest is a small town and a port, which is the central port of this game in northwest Norway. Up here you've got a lot of archipelagos, a lot of small islands. This denotes open water, so this is more of a you're open to the elements kind of thing. And up here somewhere you've got Svalbard and eventually the North Pole. And then you have the option of highlighting later on in the game where in the areas that you have discovered a particular colony of fish may be. So I've got all species highlighted. If you turn that off, it tells you, it just gives you your boat. If you put it on, it gives you, like, it lights up like a thermal image. It tells you the greatest concentration of fish. Obviously the darker this colour, I think it goes like a greeny colour. Like for instance, you've got a thermal camera. The greener the image, the hotter the cooler the image will be. That tells you how much more fish there are. That tells you that it has the greatest concentration of fish. But that obviously will be explained to you when you have, in the very early days of this game. Once you have gutted the fish and you have put the fish into storage on the boat's speed will be greatly affected, because you're obviously having to haul in. You obviously have to transport the weight of the fish that you've caught. And any fisherman out there will tell you that fish in bulk is extremely heavy. So this will obviously, it affects these smaller vessels. Once you get further into the game and you start unlocking the bigger vessels, they are less affected by the amount of fish that you store in terms of speed and performance. So we're coming up now to our second long line. Obviously with these tutorials you get markers and so forth, waypoints, you know, predefined waypoints telling you where to go for each mission, for each step within the mission. Once you finish this, you have to set your own waypoints according to where you think on the sea is the greatest concentration of fish, and then set your long lines accordingly. But for the purposes of these tutorial missions, everything is predefined for you. Makes things a lot easier. So once again we pull alongside the buoy, turns orange, so that means we're not in a optimal position to retrieve the long line. Still not in an optimal position. We can possibly pilot to the second buoy, which is behind me, so a nice 360 degree turn coming up, or even 180 degree if I get my angles right. Obviously, as I said, because you're carrying fish already on this boat, the performance and the way that it maneuvers is affected. So you will have to bear with me a little bit here, unfortunately, as I get the boat closer to the buoy to retrieve the long line. Oh dear. So the sea effects are quite nice. You get the splash and so forth. The sunshine, when it does shine, doesn't shine through the mountains, doesn't shine through any land masses. You get some games which do that, but there, as we saw earlier, there are some graphical glitches where the sunshine, where your boat lights up like this. There's too much sunlight or something. Obviously fine tuning, that it'll obviously be fine tuned in the near future. This game is being constantly updated on a daily basis, which is very good. So there we are, perfect. Let's see if we can go for all blues this time. So the later the better. So you want to delay clicking the left mouse button until the circle is the smallest it can possibly be, otherwise it will just expand again, and then you could potentially get a red missed notification. So we're just using like a hook, sorry, a stick rather, to retrieve the fish off the hook, as the long line reeler to the left of us is reeling in the long line. So that's what it's denoting. It's denoting the point at which a hook appears, and then we've got to be as quick as possible, or as exact as possible in this case, to retrieve the fish off the hook. So there we go, there's our catch again. We've got some pollock, some haddock and some redfish, and then we got the fish again. So same procedure, nice and slow and steady wins the race. There we go. You get percentages, small percentages come up rather, as you move the mouse from left to right. That denotes how much of the fish's innards that you extract. So here, for instance, it's more of an effort to try and keep the gutting in a straight line. Obviously, that fish is a lot harder to gut. You will find that some fish are easier to gut than others, which I think is nice. It's not completely easy all the time. Congratulations on holding in your second long line. This is the map interface. You can open this by using the full screen button. Using the button to below, you can set the custom waypoints to locations that you've already explored and that you can fast travel. The area of the map that is exposed depends on the boat's radar. You should consider upgrading if you want to fast travel to locations that are farther away. Head to Hammerfest Port, where you'll be able to sell your fish that you've just collected. A mission waypoint has been set on the map. So we can either drive there in real time, or we can warp there in fast time. So our radar at the moment is limited to this circle here, and this tells you, this basically tells you what I was explaining earlier. This area here in the like a greeny yellow colour denotes the highest concentration of fish. I've selected all species, but if we were to go for redfish, they are there. If we were to go to haddock, there's hundreds of them here. That's probably the greatest concentration of haddock. Pollock, the biggest concentration is here. Cod, now cod is a seasonal fish. Obviously I'll talk about that when we go through the wiki later on, and obviously all species. So within the concentric circle here, you can fast travel and you can set waypoints. You can't set waypoints in these areas outside of the circle, either because you're too far away from them or you need a better radar. So let's fast travel for the purpose of this video. You set a waypoint, you click that, away we go. Be careful when using fast traveling. In order to upgrade some of the, I wonder if I'm able to show you. In order to upgrade some of the better boats, the better equipment, you need to travel as much as possible in real time. The distance that you travel in real time determines at one particular stage in the future when the better boat unlocks. So for instance, we need to travel 30 kilometers, I think that is, possibly even 20 kilometers. It's quite difficult to read this writing, in order to upgrade and unlock the next boat, and then that'll give you another amount that you need to real-time travel to unlock the next boat, etc, etc, etc. Talk about the logbook later, but we'll fast travel to Hammerfest, and then for the last couple of meters we'll travel there in real time, and then we'll dock with the port up ahead. So this is Hammerfest port. Each port, or Hammerfest discovered, each port is denoted by this big area of purple here. Once you're within that area of purple, an icon will appear to the right here, informing you that your ship is now ready to dock. Mission complete. Congratulations on returning to Hammerfest. Again, to sell your fish, you should dock at Hammerfest by entering the rectangular port zone, which is the purple area, and clicking the dock at port button on the right. From here you're on your own. So you can sell your fish. You get a certain amount depending on the value of the fish in krona, which is the currency that they use. Depending on where you dock. So before we do the next tutorial, let's talk about briefly what we can see here. So this is Hammerfest port. It gives you a reputation. Higher reputation improves the prices of fish sold and increases the difficulty and rewarded jobs. So you can go from junior, I think, to the highest, which is Lord of the Fish, depending on how much fish that you bring in. At each harbour, each port that on the map, you have the option to go to the fish market, which tells you the prices of fish, and you have the option here to buy bait for each of your long lines. To fish with long lines, you need to bait your empty lines with one of the available bait types and the number of hooks you wish to bait. Each type of bait has a different probability of catching each species of fish, depending on the current availability of that species. So here, for instance, we have 250 hooks for a 25 meter length of long line, 500 hooks for a 50 meter, and 1,000 hooks for 100 meters of long line. And you can bait them with 4 types. You have krill, mackerel, shrimp, and crab. The other options you can do is you can go up into town, where you can hire crew. Obviously this is a one-man vessel. As you unlock and upgrade ships, you will need to hire crew to help you haul in a net, to help you cook, to help you gut the fish, or even to help you stack the fish, which is what you need to do on larger vessels prior to sending them at ports. You can hire them, and it tells you, gives you their stats, anything from stacking through to cooking. which is a aspect of the game I'm not sure about. I've never actually had to use the cooking or get a crew member to cook for me. And then of course you can fire a crew if that crew member is becoming too expensive. There's the bank, where you can take out a bank loan or you can repay a bank loan. That gives you set missions, predefined missions. The missions in this game at the moment are very few and far between. Most of the time you will spend on the ocean going to areas of that map coloured with the greatest amount of fish, hauling them in, gutting them, returning to port, rinse and repeating, travelling as much in real time and unlocking new ships and new equipment. I've yet to do a job outside of the two tutorials, and this gives you a rescue service, which at the moment you have a radio system where if your boat is in distress, you can call for help. And this obviously this upgrade will give you unlimited free towing, whereas the one that you have at the moment will charge you 8,000 krone per tow. You have the dock itself, where you can refuel, where you can repair, you can repaint, or you can change the name of your boat. Obviously, when you fast travel, you'll use double the amount of fuel that you use if you travel in real time. Then you have the various upgrades available to the boat. You have the option of upgrading to the boat's maximum capacity, which in this case is plus 3,000 kilograms. You can upgrade the engine, which is plus 12 horsepower, all within the constraints of the vessel, of course. You won't be able to, for instance, go beyond a plus 12 horsepower engine. Upgrade the radar, which will improve how much you can see on the map. Upgrade the searchlight, which just gives you a stronger beam. Upgrades the mast for greater transmission of distress calls the further away from the nearest port that you are. You also have the option to purchase the boat. So this gives you a nice breakdown of the boats that you can unlock as you progress in the game. So the second boat is this, the third boat is this, the fourth boat is this, and the fifth boat is this. So that's a proper industrial sized fishing trawler. Obviously upgrading and unlocking as you progress in the game. What else do you have available for you? You have the main menu where you can save the game. Every time you dock at a port, it will auto save, but you can save outside of the port wherever and whenever you are, wherever you are and whenever you want. You can change the options, as I said earlier at the beginning. You've got a wiki, which I think is one of the better aspects of the game. This wiki is particularly easy to use. It doesn't bombard you with information. The font is very legible, and it gives you like a very basic biological breakdown of each of the fish that you're able to catch in the game. So you've got, this is the getting started page, this is the fish page, this is the fish bait page, and the various tools that are available to you in the game, and the ports that are available. So let's just go through each of them very quickly. This tells you, gives you an introduction as to what this page is. This tells you about the HUD, the certificates that you need. This is basically the amount that you travel in the game will give you a better certificate, giving you a better boat. And this tells you the history of fishing in this particular part of the world, namely Norway. This tells you about the different types of fish: cod, pollock, haddock, redfish and mackerel. It gives you a brief biological introduction, and it tells you the best time to catch. Obviously this game is played in real time with real months and days of the year and real seasons, so depending on when you are in the world, which particular season, for instance if it's September, that's when you're able to start catching things like cod. Certain types of fish are only available at certain parts of the year. Fish bait tells you all the various fish bait available to you, from shrimp through to mackerel. Fishing tools, Gives you anything from fishing quotas, which I'm sure if you're familiar with fishing in real life, you know what a fishing quota is. The various types of commercial fishing techniques, longline fishing, which is what the tutorial we've been playing through is all about. Net fishing, trawling, which is what you'll be able to use on bigger ships. Net fishing is when you have quite a big cargo net, but it's smaller than the nets that I think that you use for trawling. And then you have the various better methods, better equipment that will unlock in order for you to access the better methods of commercial fishing. Obviously, the better equipment that you buy, the better quality of the fish that you'll sell, and of course the better price that you'll get. It all works on a very, very basic rudimentary supply and demand system. If you supply a port with the best quality fish using the best equipment that you've unlocked, you will get the best price. And this tells you the ports that are available in the game. This is our home port. This is basically an area of Hammerfest. This is one other port, another port. This is the port that's south of Hammerfest, Ripe Fjord or something. Akkar Fjord, Tufjord, and Snefjord. I do apologise if I'm butchering the pronunciations of those names, but they are the ports that you can use, that you can unlock by travelling to them. You can sell, tells you to deliver the fish, and this explains the functionality of the crew that you can hire. It explains the attributes, is what we covered earlier. It tells you that they can cook, it tells you that they can rest. It tells you what they do when they cook, and it tells you what they do when they rest. And likewise, this explains in detail the docks, which is what I shown you earlier. And this is the logbook. You can see all the deliveries and sales that you've made at the port. Note that the fish should be delivered before they are 8 days old. Otherwise they'll start to rot, and once you receive them, and the value that you receive them, the price that you'll receive them will decrease. So obviously you do work to very tight time scales in this game. If you leave a long line out for a certain amount of time, 48 hours, the long line will be lost. Obviously the longer you leave the long line, the less best result that you get. And obviously the longer that you have out on sea with caught fish that are like 8 days old, they'll obviously start rotting. You do get facilities later on in the game where you can freeze the fish that you've caught, and that will obviously preserve their lifespan, so that it will decrease the chances of them rotting, and therefore decreasing the chances of you selling them at a much lower price. So here we have the sessions, you have events, you have the jobs. So this is basically the first tutorial. The missions that you complete will be crossed off. You have the gear, so this explains to you what you have on board. So you have a 250 hook long line baited with crab and a 250 hook long line baited with mackerel. The prices, and obviously the certificates. So let's see if we can access the second tutorial, but I think we go up into here. That's a shame. There is another part to that tutorial. For some reason I can't seem to access it, but it doesn't matter. So you also have three options here. You have the option to skip time, you have the option to bring up the map, which shows the areas that I described earlier, and you have the option to see what the weather is like. As the game is updated, as I said, almost on a daily basis now, the effects will obviously improve, the physics will hopefully be improved, and the weather effects will hopefully be improved. So what do you do when you finish the tutorial? Well, you basically have to go and fish. You buy a long line, bait that one with shrimp, so that gives you 3 baited long lines baited with shrimp. You then proceed, let's say for argument's sake, to this waypoint. Let's see if we can place a waypoint. Yeah, there we go. Once you get to that waypoint, you click on, let's just leave port. You click on this to deploy the gear. You will then have to match the speed, although I think it does it for you automatically as the line is deployed. And then after, say for instance in this sake, 25 meters, a second buoy will be released, and that will display on the map as 2 buoys joined together with a line. As time wears on, the buoys will change colour from a red to a yellow to a green to a purple, back to a green, back to a yellow, and then finally back to a red, indicating that the long line has been lost over a certain amount of time. What I tend to do, and as a general tip, is I tend to leave the long line for 17 game hours. After that 17 game hours, the line will turn green, then purple. That's the best time to haul in the long line, and you haul in the long line as I have shown you earlier. So let's proceed out onto the ocean. I may do a little bit of this journey in real time, just to show you some of the things that I don't like about this game at the moment. So the first, I would say one of the problems with this game are the physics. As you can see here, although at the moment it's 15 degrees and there's hardly any wind, there is hardly any motion from the boat unless you physically move it left and right with the steering wheel. I found though, I'm not at a stage in the game yet where it's like October, November, where apparently the wind and the weather gets worse and the boat, or you should get greater waves. But the physics in this game definitely needs refining. The graphics need to be a lot better. There needs to be a lot less almost bathing the entire ocean in sunlight. That needs to be refined. So it's more refining, it's more fine-tuning, it's more of the nitty-gritty stuff that will make this game from a good game to a great game. Because one of the main positives of this game is it's a very accessible introduction to commercial fishing. In many ways it is less boring than Eurofishing or Fishing Planet. It's similar to another game called Deadliest Catch, which I believe released for the Xbox amongst Xbox 360 amongst other platforms, and it does have very simple tutorials. It has an excellent wiki. It's a very accessible introduction to the world of commercial fishing for a complete layman, which is what I was, complete beginner to the world of fishing. Didn't know the difference between angling or fishing, didn't know the difference between trawling, long line or net hauling, but after playing this for several days I think I know now. So it's a good game. There are updates releasing for this game on a daily basis. Hopefully in the not too distant future it will release itself from early access. By that time all these little niggles with the physics, the graphics, the ocean and how it looks will improve. But in the meantime it is an enjoyable game. When you get these bigger boats, obviously you get that you do have to spend a lot of time in real game time. This is the final. This is where we've set the waypoint as indicated by the red light. So the boats will move a lot slower. So it does have the potential to be boring. My advice would be to put something like some background music on whilst you're travelling between destinations, or just to even listen to the game music, which I'll give you a little taste of. So we can go, I think it's, I'm hoping it's going to play. There we go. This is one of the soundtracks that you can use called Calm Water. So now we're in this, well, we're roughly at the end of this area of where it's highlighted as a concentration of fish. We can deploy the gear. So longline fishing is a commercial fishing technique commonly used in the Barents Sea. It uses a long line called the main line with baited hooks attached. So to deploy the long line, basically you click that, and that buoy denotes the start of the long line. You then hold W until that small yellow bar there moves to the very top, indicating full throttle. And then once that reaches 25, a second buoy will be deployed. So let's bring the bar down roughly there between roughly there's about idle. It's different for each boat, and that gives you the colour coordinated buoys will then appear. So that indicates that it's not ready yet. That will eventually change colour to the purple. As I said, after about 17, perhaps 18 game hours, that will turn to purple, indicating the best time to retrieve that long line. And then you just do as before. You haul in the long line, you gut the fish, you fast travel, or you go back to port, you sell the fish. My advice would then be to do probably 1 or 2 long lines near Hammerfest, go back, sell the fish, then upgrade the boat, get storage upgrades, get engine upgrades, so that you can store more. Obviously it won't store very much. I think it was like plus 6,000 or something, and with the more fish that you have on board, the more caught fish you have on board, the slower your boat will be. But you can always fast travel. The downside, of course, is that it has a consequence. So you have the option here, instead of pressing E, to come alongside a buoy and retrieve it by clicking this, and then of course by gutting the fish. These are the lights. So you got the interior lights. Again, it's a rather nice how they've done this. The graphics on the ship are lovely. As I said, it gives you the feeling that you're driving a third-hand boat full of splintered wood and stuff. You have work lights, which are basically it highlights the areas like the wheelhouse and the long line hauler. You have the searchlight, which can assist in locating and highlighting buoys, but I find it more of a hindrance. I prefer to just zoom out and then use the naked eye to find the buoy. And then you have the running lights, which are the main lights, which is what every boat uses when they set out to sea at night. Then you have the radar, which is this, or the GP. You have sonar, which basically, this, if you're not familiar with with what a sonar is basically an underwater radar. It pings up to a certain distance, a certain range, an area of the beneath under the water, and then if it picks up anything, the signal bounces back, and that often appears as either like a click or a series of audible clicks. This you don't, which I think all you get is a graphical representation of what's beneath the ship, that being the seabed, that being a school of fish, or perhaps just one fish. This tells you how much fish you've got on board, the species, how much they weigh, and the age. Obviously 8 days is the max before they start rotting. Gives you the quota, which is how much fish per year this boat is allowed to catch. Tells you how much you've gutted, and how much of that's been 5-star down to 1-star, down to no star, and the cargo. So you've got no cargo at the moment. Line information. So long line 1 is 250 herc groups, 54 meters, and that just tells you what the gear, what type of long line you've got on board, whether it's baited and what it's baited with, and of course the weather forecast. So it's very easy, very nice graphical breakdown. You've got your fuel, you've got how fast the boat is travelling in. This is the radio, which broadcasts a distress signal, so you can call for rescue and stuff. This is the damage to the boat. Obviously that goes back to physics. One of the other things that I don't like is when you come into port and you click the dock at port icon, which will appear here. If your boat's travelling at a really fast speed, when you click dock and when you throw the rope, when the game throws the ropes over to moor the boat, the boat just stops. It doesn't do you any damage, even if it appears on screen as if you're running into the side of the dock at full speed. That should do some damage. Hopefully that will be refined. And of course the fuel, and this is the throttle indicator, the compass, which also appears on there. And then you have the music that's playing, you have the current game time, the current game month and the year. So this is August the 15th 2017, does it in the American format, so month before day. And then here it gives you how much money you have. So you have 65,316 krona in the bank. So I hope that gives you a brief introduction as to what this game includes. I think it's a very accessible game for people who are totally new to the world of commercial fishing. It's been updated on a daily basis now. Sometimes you may get, I got like 2 updates in a day in the past. It hopefully will be released from early access in the near future. And my recommendation is to try it and see whether you like it. That'll be all for Huey Highlights for this week. I do hope you can tune in next week for another review of a new game. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and goodbye.